Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to start getting this 904 ready for reassembly. Show you a few things about kind of a bit of the teardown of it. My spare one, I just have a couple videos. I kind of took most of it apart. Should have kind of saved that part of it, but I got most of it torn apart. I do have a couple little things that I'll share, as we go through, tearing your case apart, or pulling transmission apart. One of the big things is as you take the parts out, lay them all out as you take them out. That way it makes it, the order. They do have a lot of, diagrams out there that you can look up and see the order of everything. I just like laying it out myself. Well, guys, I started tearing apart the other transmission, and you can see the frictions are absolutely toast in this thing. So the other thing I remember I was talking about, I had the 32 spring deal in there. You can see this is one big spring where the aftermarket piece that I bought has individual little, I think it was 32 springs if I remember right, and then it's got like a billet piece on top. So this is the original, the huge spring that goes in there versus the aftermarket piece that I had purchased. But again, look at these frictions, man. They are garbage in this transmission. And you can also see that the drum, is grooved. So I'm sure when I pull the band out here, we'll find that the band is garbage too. Yeah, see? Band is completely worn out. So, yeah, this transmission, not sure how many miles were on it, but that's why it's a core. All right, guys, if you're having trouble taking this out, or I should say this out, right, because this slides, anyway, that slides down in here, right, for this. And then that goes against your piston, and, this goes against the band. You can take a quarter, I think it's quarter 20, thread it in there, and you can pop this out. And then we can take that out of the way, set that aside, and then now I can get this piston assembly out. Now the other thing I'm having trouble with is getting this one out, because I need to take this out. I have to get it out because I have a different ratio one that I'm going to put in. And let me show you the difference in these ratios that I have. But before that, I need to get this. This is a 1/4 inch, and she is stuck in there. So give me a minute to see what I can do to get that out, because I was able to do it in my other case with this, just a 1/4 inch ratchet and extension. The broken case, well, it's over there, but let me see what I can do. I may need to give that a couple little whacks, unseat it, and then see if we can get it out, or maybe put a little heat to it, and then see if that will help loosen it, and so I can get it out. All right, guys, so I got the pipe plug out, so I can remove that rod. And basically, I used my little propane torch here. I just put the heat on it for probably 10 minutes. And then I was able to break this guy loose. And, as you can see, I didn't take any of the aluminum or the threads with me. So that's always a good thing. So now I can get that out. And I'll show you the difference between the levers that I'm talking about, the stock one versus the 5.0 that I'm running for main transmissions. So you can see what that looks like. All right, so here is these levers that control your front band. And this is a 5.0, like I mentioned, for main A transmission. So I've got it sitting on here. If you noticed, there's the difference. So it's the ratio, how quickly it applies the band. So you can see the length is basically the same. The dimensions are pretty much the same. It's just there's what you're paying for. That's the difference from a stock one to an aftermarket one. All right, guys, so I'll take this out here in a second, but you can see, this tang, right? You can get your screwdriver kind of in there and then start lifting it up. And then you can pop the snap ring off, and then, you can remove this piston. There's a spring down here and all that. So be careful when you don't, the spring doesn't come flying in your face. There's a little pressure under it. It shouldn't come flying out. But anyway, just use caution when removing this. All right, guys, the next thing we'll do is pop out the seal where this is where your valve body comes through, and this is where your lever arm is. So it's easier to do it from the back side. We'll just put a a punch in here, give it a couple whacks and knock that out. This does not come out. This is pressed in. So we're not going to try to remove this. They do make a bolt-in one. I think it may have a couple of extra sprags on it to help hold, you know, that in tighter and better, but I have not had any problems at all with the stock one. So once I get this seal out, we pretty much have this thing all gutted. Then the next thing I'll do is go through and we'll give her a good cleaning. So here's the transmission I tore apart that, you know, I was running 10-second passes with. And here's what I was talking about. You know, here's the frictions, right? You know, and you can still read the ink in it, A&A transmission. You know, here's where I'm running, you know, these are 062 steel, frictions, I'm sorry. You know, you can see my choline steels there. The steels are in great shape still even. You know, the frictions when I measured them were down to 059. So they had lost just a hair. I'm going to go ahead and put all new ones in anyway, and I'll just keep these as emergency spares. The frictions, the steels I'm going to reuse. Now, if you notice, one thing here is these are all smooth. You know, when you get normally refresh kit, the backs are smooth, and these are normally have a checkered pattern on them. John Cope, when I purchased these from Cope Racing, that's who I got my valve body from, said go ahead and just drill some 16th inch holes in, you know, 90 degrees apart in your steels, and you can run the smooth ones. So here's what I'm talking about. You know, I think that, I don't remember, it's 24 or 32 little springs. You can kind of see them there, right? So that's what I'm talking about. And then this is all a billet aluminum piece versus one big wound spring. You know, this is much quicker and more even pressure when it applies. So this is you know, this was like $110 when I purchased it, I think. It was around $100, I think. I don't remember exactly, but that was one upgrade I had done. And then the other upgrade I had done is this is a billet piston here. Then here's the reverse manual valve body. Otherwise, everything else in the transmission is basically stock. You know, like I said, we're adding 5 there where it was 4 before. We're still running 4 back on this one. You know, the billet setup there for the springs, the billet piston there. Otherwise, you know, we're running a stock transmission. Everything else. So it's lived perfectly fine for a bunch of 12-second passes, normally aspirated. And, you know, I've run, like I said, as fast as 1086. So we'll jump into this here in a minute once I get this cleaned up, and then we'll start going into taking the seals off, all these parts, putting all new seals in, new sealing rings. You know, I'll show you, like I said, a few tips and tricks along the way, you know, for reassembly. All right, guys, here is a very simple fixture to hold your 904 transmission, or probably 727. So you can see on my engine stand here, a spare one that I have, I just took some angle iron, drilled 2 holes to hold the angle iron to the main plate. I took the arms from the engine stand, and you can see one is flipped up, one is flipped down, and then I've got a bunch of washers here. It'd be better if I had a spacer, but this is what I had, you know, at the time. So because these are at different levels, as you can see, one's further down, one's further up. That's the reason why. So now I've got a couple of long bolts. So if you have a drill in engine stand, you know, you basically can, you know, on a piece of scrap angle iron, you can build a simple fixture to put your transmission in for a 904 or 727. GMs are a little different. You can see now we can spin it up. When we go to drop in, you know, the drums and everything and bolt the pump up and whatnot, we can spin it, right? Get to the bottom when we get the valve body on and get our pistons all set up. You know, we can adjust the band, right? So we can get to over here, adjust our band, you know, and yeah, works out slick. Put the tail shaft on. So just a quick little fixture I figured I'd show you. All right, guys, one of the first things we need to do, make sure the case is nice and clean. So I've, you know, brake cleaned it, blew it out, you know, we scraped all the gasket surfaces up real good, right? We've, you know, made sure this gasket surface is all nice and clean. So now we can go ahead and start doing some basic reassembly. We're going to start with some simple things to start with. You know, we'll put in the pistons back in. We can put in, you know, these levers back in. We can put in the rear, this back in. Can't think of the name of it right now, but we can put that in and bolt it back in place to get it out of the way. So we're going to try to get some of the simple parts off the bench that we can do real quick. Like I said, when we get these pistons put in, these couple of control arms, bolt that back in, just to get a couple of things out of the way. So then we can go into tearing apart our drums, putting in some new frictions and steels, show you a trick for replacing the seals on the pistons. Neat little trick that I use so that way I don't tear the seals. Anyway, let's jump into putting some of this stuff in here just to kind of get it out of the way. You know, we'll put in new sealing rings or, you know, seals, on these pistons as well. You know, and we'll walk through those steps. Guys, I forgot to take this piston out. So you can see I basically use the pliers that I used to remove the snap ring right from the back of the case back here. You know, to get these out because there are a couple of sealing rings on it. So we'll go ahead and clean this all up. So guys, here's what I ordered to refresh my transmission. New filter, gasket and seal kit, new front Kevlar band. This one is a Pro Kevlar band. You see Pro Series right there. This is actually for an A500 transmission, but it fits perfectly in the 904. It's also wider than the stock 904. So that's why I went with this Pro Series band. And I got my Alto Reds, all 61.061 thick, you know, Alto Reds. I got 9 of them. 4 for the, 4 for the back, 5 for the front. And then a bushing kit. And I'm not going to replace the bushings, but I do need to replace the tail shaft bushing, in my replacement one. My original one I'm not going to use, the one that came off this transmission. It got pretty beat up and they're prone to cracking. I don't know if there's a small crack in it. And the bushing got beat to living heck. And the other one, I don't know how many miles are on it, so I'm going to put a new bushing in it. It was cheaper to buy all these. $10 more and I got all of them versus $15 for just that one. So I picked these up off of Amazon. I can put a link into this for Amazon, but all this stuff was $200 for, basically doing a refresh. Now, if you're doing a stock overhaul, you can buy an entire kit with steels and everything, bushings, you name it, stock Kevlar front and rear bands for, a couple $100. I spent about $200 for this stuff, mainly these guys. These guys were $9 a piece. Now, some guys will tell you, oh, you don't need Alto Reds. I had these in my last transmission. The Alto Reds worked awesome. I'm going to run the Alto Reds again. Some guys will tell you because you're putting 5 in the front drum, that you don't need to, in the low reverse drum. Anyway, in the drum, that I can't think of, drawing a blank right now, which ones had 4, which ones had 5. But, some guys will tell you can run, the Ray Bestest or the Borg Warner style, they're performance ones and, they're a little cheaper. Like I said, I've had good luck with the Alto Reds. Like I said, I got these for $9 a piece from these guys, these global transmissions parts, and they actually came to me from, you can see, Ohio. So anyway, that's where I got my parts from. All right, guys, so here's, this one with the old rings back on. You can see they're kind of shiny from being used. So here's where the gap is, right? Just kind of take it, see if I can do this now on camera, and just kind of spin it up and around like so, and it'll pop off. Take your new one. There's no to bevel, there's no up versus down. Just slip it on, in one of the cracks there, right? And then just work it around the top, slide it in, and there you go. And then just do the same thing for the bottom one. So guys, you can use two products to lube up your seals and your, lip seals and everything. You can either use this assembly goo, which I really don't like to use. I use it on some of the cast iron seals here. I'll smear a little on to make them easier to see. But most of the time, Vaseline. It's petroleum based, so it'll dissolve in there. Not a problem, but I like to use Vaseline for all my seals to put them on. But I'll use the assembly goo, on like these seals, but I'll use these on like the lip seals. So now we'll just stick some on here. All right, make it easier for it to pop into the bore. All right. And there you go. You got your first one in. Now we'll go ahead and do, the next one and the next one and the next one. All right, guys, so now we're going to go ahead and do this one. So in here is your little plunger, right? In spring, little plunger in spring, plunger goes down, spring, and then, put your plunger in there like so. There she goes. So, got that in there. Now we can pop our snap ring in place. And again, your snap ring, there's a groove in here. Just, get it in a groove and work it around and get it in. There you go. So now we got the snap ring in place. We got this done, so now we can go to this one. Now guys, one difference here, okay, is your stock one has sealing rings, okay? I'm running an aftermarket John Cope or Cope Racing valve body. It uses O-rings, okay? So I've replaced the O-rings on this, and I'm gonna lube these up real good with Vaseline, and we'll slip this in the bore. So if you're doing a stock rebuild, you'll run the cast sealing rings. If you're not doing a stock rebuild, follow your manufacturer's recommendations. Like I said, John Cope Racing tells me to use these O-rings, so I've replaced these O-rings, and I'm going to lube them up good, and we'll pop this sucker right in the bore. So this is what I'll use the Vaseline on, is like these. All right, we've got her all lubed up. Now we'll just slip it in. I say that, and she probably won't go. There she goes. So now we've got that piston in. Now we'll come to this piston. Now this piston, you can see, uses a lip seal. So what we'll do is we'll take this lip seal off and we'll match this lip seal. Make sure you put it on in the correct direction. And then, like I said, I'm going to lube this guy up real good as well. The other thing I should mention is this is actually an aftermarket billet piece that I purchased. This was off of, I think, eBay many years ago. I couldn't tell you the part number of this. But this is an aftermarket billet piece, just as an FYI. Oh, by the way, this accumulator here, you can get this as an aftermarket piece too, where it actually has dual seals, top and bottom. So if you want to go with like I believe it's Sonax makes that. You can go with the dual piece. I think they're around 75 bucks if you want to go to an aftermarket one. Sorry guys, I forgot to film it. But that piston, I basically lubed it up real good. Here, I suppose I can pull it back out. I lubed up the piston real good. Put a little bit more Love Lube on this thing, so she slides in nice and easy. Just take your time. Work it in, maybe give it a little spin. There she goes. You can see, don't slam it in, guys. Finesse it. Finesse that in. It's all about finessing these seals so you don't flip a seal or cut a seal. And that's probably most importantly on the drums. All right, guys, get yourself a C-clamp, big washer, push down the spring. It'll make it a whole lot easier for you to pop in your snap ring. Now, probably making a liar out of me. And there you go. Now we got our snap ring, we got our spring, right? We got this piston in, this piston in. We will not put this piston in until we put the valve body on. So next I'm going to put the roller in. All right guys, so before we can put the one-way in, the sprag there, we need to put this in. I forgot about that. So these bolts you tighten to 150 inch-pounds. So let me get these torqued up. And what I'm using, guys, I'm using the ATSG index book. I found this one online that I was able to download. You can purchase these, I think, for like 35 bucks online if you can't find a downloadable version. This will give you all the instructions on how to rebuild a 904, all the torque specs, everything step by step. You guys want to see the difference between the little low roller springs, I guess you want to call them. Here is a worn out one. Here is a new one. So for just a few bucks, these little springs are worth it. So I would highly recommend, if you're doing an overhaul, new or used, stock or performance, to upgrade these little springs. They're worth it. Let me show you down in the hole here a second how I'm doing this. All right guys, so what I'm doing down here is, just notice, right, here's the tang. Okay, a tang. So what I'm doing is taking the spring, putting the spring against the tang, if you will, there, and then I'm putting the roller, okay, against the spring. So that little tang that sticks up, put your spring against that, and then you'll slide your roller against the spring. And so I set this in the center, and I'm just kind of working them in there one by one to get them all in place. All right, guys, so once you get all your springs in there and all your rollers, take a screwdriver, put it in there, and then just spin it. What will happen is the springs will kind of equalize out. You'll notice that some are loose, some are tight when you initially do it. So once you kind of spin it, once or twice, everything will kind of, normalize out. And that will also, you can double check to make sure it rolls one way, and it should not roll the other way. It should lock in place. So should roll one direction, should roll clockwise in this case, okay, and not roll counterclockwise. That's the way to make sure your roller is working, or your sprag. Okay guys, next I'm going to go ahead and replace the sealing rings here on my output shaft, right? This big guy. So we'll replace these, and then we'll just set it on the bench for the time being. For right now, guys, I went ahead and installed the input shaft, or the output shaft, sorry. Mind you, there's nothing holding this in right now. Now, granted, I could put the tail shaft on it and hold it on, and I may do that just to put a couple bolts in place temporarily. But there's nothing holding this thing in place right now. So I could install the output or the tail shaft like I said, but right now I'm just getting it out of my way. All right guys, in an effort to get parts out of the way, we're going to go ahead and install this lever. This is, a 5/0 lever versus a stock lever, if you saw earlier in the video. Now what I'm going to do is slide this through the front of the case into the arm. All right, and then it's held in by this pipe plug. Now, if you notice, this whole area is open to fluid. If you do not seal this pipe plug, transmission fluid will leak, through these threads. So what I like to use, PTFE Teflon. So Permatex thread sealant with PTFE. I'll put a link in the description for this, as well as all the other stuff that I use today, or in these videos. Maybe not just one video, it may be a couple of videos. So we'll put a little PTFE on it and thread it in through the front of the case. And then we'll do the rear one. All right, guys, now we can put this back one in. This one just slides into place. There's not anything to lock it in or hold it in place. So, but it does have a seal on it. The seal I took off was old and brittle, basically snapped. I didn't find a seal in my kit for this, of course, so I dug a seal out from, one of my seal O-ring seal kits. This one supposed to be, have more resistance to chemicals and all that. So that's the one we'll slide in here. Plenty of Vaseline on it. Okay. And we'll thread it in and get her popped in there. And that pretty much takes care of this. So now we got a few more parts out of the way off our workbench. And we can start probably working on, rebuilding our drums with our new frictions and steels. All right, guys, a couple more pieces on it. These are 1/8" NPT to 6AN fittings for my transmission lines. These are, aluminum pieces versus the brass pieces. And then this is, for our band adjustment for our front band. So we've just kind of threaded that in to get it out of the way as well. We could pop this seal in real quick since I've got this out of the way. So what it is your valve body, if you remember, will come up through this seal, and we'll put a bunch of Vaseline on the seal, not on this surface where the seal goes in, but on the sealing surface itself, so when we put in the valve body, it'll slide through, nice. All right, guys, I'm just going to use a seal driver, drive this in real quick. This is the bushing, part of it, and then that's the seal part that I just kind of flip them around and use them. You get a package of, I think it's 5 or 6 different ones. I can put a link in the description if you've not used these. These are kind of nice to have. These are just, aluminum. All right, guys, so what we're going to do is I just put in this band, okay, slide it through the front of the case. These tangs here right against that shaft, and then this here rides up against this here, all right, and we'll have to adjust the band, okay, to so many turns when we get to that point, right? It'll go in here like so, and then we'll adjust this to so many turns. We'll get to that in a little bit. The next thing we can do is we can drop this in, okay? This will engage onto our one-way sprag, okay? And then this will slide inside of that, and then there's a spacer on the inside of that, and then we've got our aluminum pieces. Now, so let me slip this in here into our one-way, see if we can film it. Probably should set up my stand and start doing it instead. And that's probably what I'll do. Let me go ahead and, oh, there she goes. You can see we can't go this way. She can spin this way, right? No problem. She cannot come back at all. So that knows our one-way sprag there is working. All right, guys, so I need to take this back out because I need to make sure the band is up like so, and get it into there. There she goes. And then run this down a little bit to hold the band in place. There we go. We'll adjust this later. The key is right now I just wanted to get it put in place. It tells you to tighten it down so much and then back it off so many turns. We'll get into that here in a minute, but you can see again, our one way, we can spin it this way, right? We cannot spin it this way. That is the key. She is seated all the way to the back, and we've got our band in there. She's against the lugs, and we've got this adjustment set. Now, we can take this off. No, there is not a spacer in there. I thought there was a spacer in there. So we've got this set up now. I mentioned earlier there was a spacer in here. There is not. This just rides in here. This is the one I was saying, a lot of guys say you should upgrade to steel because these, break. I don't see any damage to this one. Everything looks really good. So we'll go ahead and slip that in here like so. Like that. Get her lined up and get her in there. You can see, right, these lugs here, right, go into the lugs of the drum. So we've got that now in place. Next, we can throw this guy in there. So this guy, again, goes in like so, okay? All right, this will go inside that aluminum piece. Oh, get her in there. Oh, sorry, forgot, there's a spacer there. Gets back out. Take that out for a second. Here's the spacer I was talking about. This guy here. So, need to make sure we put this with the tangs in there. Like so. And then we can slip this guy in. Now, I think I may have a new one of these. This one's only got, I think, 10,000 miles on it. So you can see the copper is kind of worn off of it. Let me see if I've got a new one of these. And if I do, we'll put a new one in. Otherwise, we'll just go ahead and reuse this one. And then we'll finish doing the rest of the assembly. Hang tight. Let me go check and see if I got one. All right. I did not have another one. So now I went and put that one back in. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll put some Vaseline on there to kind of help hold it in place so it doesn't come loose. Now we'll go ahead and slip this in. Now that does have a new bushing in it from just a few thousand miles ago. That's why I'm not replacing it. Now we can go ahead and slip this inside of there. Boom. And now what we can do is we should be able to slip the snap ring on to hold that all together. So let me find the little spacer and the snap ring, and we'll pop that in, and then we can turn this upright. And when we get the drums rebuilt, we can drop that all in. So hang tight. Let me slip the snap ring in. I'll show you what that is here in a second. Now there's another one right here, guys, that popped out on me. So make sure, again, this one, when you put it in, same deal, right? Put it in place, make sure it sticks. You can use a little Vaseline to help hold it in place. And then slip it in so then, you can see the groove that you need to put your snap ring in. So this one popped out, wouldn't let me seat it all the way. All right, guys, here's a little better view. I've got the case sitting vertical now, and you can see here's that snap ring I was talking about. We were able to put in now with no problem. And then here's the little fiber washer. We kind of stick right back on top of that. So now we can move over to doing that stuff. Well, guys, it's getting late in the evening. I think we are going to stop there for today. So we will get into building the drums tomorrow, and then finishing this thing off. There's not a whole lot really left to do. We just need to build the two drums with the new frictions of steels, put in the front band, drop the pump in with the new seal on the pump, new seal here on the gasket right to the transmission, drop the valve body in, bolt it down, throw the tail shaft on, new seal on the tail shaft, and put the oil pan on. That's about it, really. We're getting close to being done. We're halfway through, You can see it hasn't been too hard so far. So let's call it a night. We'll come back tomorrow.